Hello everyone. Today we talk about two issues. One is American opium smuggled to China at early years. The other is about Peter Parker, the American doctor missionary, and then turned to be a U.S. minister to China, and strongly urged Washington taking over Taiwan. When the British sold opium to China for huge profits, and Americans also joined in. They purchased opium from Turkey and sold to China, which began soon after the first sale of cargo ship imports with China. It is recorded since 1790 to 1800, and the Americans sold opium to China about 4,000 cases. From 1830 to 1840, about 17,000 cases. From 1840 to 1842, almost 35,000. Many of the early businessmen participated in the opium deals. Initially, American government set this issue at default, somewhat permitted, for the silver they earned by the businessmen and could greatly relieve U.S. of the trade deficit. Lin Zexu, a key Qing government official, urged a no drug policy in China. He said that opium had harmed China tremendously. If it were disregarded, then very soon in the future, China would have fewer soldiers and less funds for defense. As the imperial viceroy, he ordered all the foreigners turn in their opium and confiscated about 20,000 cases worthy of $10 million. Including 1,546 cases from Americans, while they concealed another 1,600 cases. On June 3, 1839, Lin destroyed the opium at Human Gate, Canton, which triggered the future First Sino-British Opium War. And the U.S. government finally decided to comply with Lin's anti-opium policy. Lin Zexu has been regarded as the first Chinese to look at the world, and also the first to introduce America. And the book Records of the Four Continents systematically taught about USA. Limited to historic circumstances, the early trying of translation of something new was really a good challenge, and it was hard then to give a proper Chinese name and a first-time translation about the name of United States, Washington, D.C., Indians, and a U.S. president. The British merchants asked the ages of their government, and in May 1840, the Britons sent 16 warships with 540 guns and 4,000 soldiers, waged the Opium War, during which American businessmen also called for U.S. government to send delegations to China for a treaty, also with worship to show force to China. Yet, when Americans arrived at China, nothing dangerous could be seen to Americans, so they didn't get involved in the clashes between China and Britain. Only asked for China's guarantee of most favored nation status for Americans. Now we turn to introduce Peter Parker, the first American doctor missionary to China. In 1804, Peter Parker was born in a farmer's family in Massachusetts. He was quiet and a little bit rebellious at an early age. When he was 14 years old, he began to study Bible and wished to be a pastor. At the age of 30, he graduated from the major of medical study and theology of the Yale College. And 1 month later, he was assigned to China by ABCFM. That is the American Board of Commission for Foreign Missionary. Peter Parker came to Canton after staying a while in Singapore for learning Chinese, and under the help of another American missionary, Elijah Coleman Bridgman, he established a medical center of ophthalmic and cured many patients including the disease of cataract, tumor, fracture, and kidney stone. It relieved the pain of the patients with anesthetic and won respect in people by his kindness and generosity. Meanwhile, some early Chinese physicians of Western medical practice developed from here, and one of them was Guantao or Guanduya. By statistics, 1 year after the establishment of the ophthalmic center, about 2,152 patients had received treatment. And until 1850, about 36,000 Chinese patients visited the clinic and were treated for free. Whether a high official or a beggar without penny, they're all equal in treatment. With more medical practice, the clinic developed to be the Boji Hospital, the earliest hospital in modern China. And later it changed name to Guangzhou Zhongshan Hospital, and where the father of China, Sun Yat-sen, also made medical studies. 1840, before Sino-British Opium War, Peter Parker returned to America for a wedding. His wife was Harriet Webster, a niece of U.S. State Secretary of Daniel Webster. In June 1842, before his returning to China, the U.S. President John Taylor had a talk with him and mentioned some China issue. At that time, America considered somebody as envoy for China treaty negotiation. Peter Parker later became Cushing's secretary and interpreter, and helped him in signing a treaty of Wangsha. And since then, this Dr. Missionary with a scalpel changed to a diplomat with power politics. In 1855, Peter Parker was appointed as a minister to China by U.S. President Franklin Pierce, and with 3 new missions, such as U.S. diplomats and could stay in Beijing, and more trade ports could be opened, and all the limits to U.S. citizens in China could be removed. This request at that time was surely something mission impossible. And Peter Parker planned to work with the British and France to enforce to China in the Second Opium War and urged the U.S. government to take over Taiwan. In February 1857, Peter Parker wrote to Washington and emphasized the importance of Taiwan's location and recommended to reconsider its relations with Taiwan based on interests. Peter Parker also met with Armstrong, a U.S. Navy commander in Hong Kong, and suggesting the importance of America's annexation of Taiwan. He said that based on international law, and retaliation can be done to China, and Taiwan is more suitable under American governance, considering the seaborne transportation from California to Japan and then to China. Taiwan is good for a coal supply station for America. Whenever Taiwan is away from a Chinese empire, America should take it over, and it is proper based on power balance. Yet the U.S. President Pierce and State Secretary Macy didn't agree with him, and nor planned to involve in the Second Opium War. The new administration of Buchanan sent William Reed to replace Peter Parker as a minister to China, and he returned to Washington and continued to peddle his idea of taking over Taiwan. William Reed declared to China that America has no other purpose in remote China except legal trade and protection of U.S. citizens and their properties, nor for territories expansion, nor political interests, neither for our new foothold in China. America comes to China just for business, nothing else, to which China should take it easy. In comparison, the policy of business only, nothing else, was much more wiser than that of the current U.S. government. America has long advocated democracy, freedom, human rights, universal values, and political correctness, taking the commanding heights of morality. Yet in fact, what it does is much more different from what it says. America is a capitalist country where money talks only for profits. It is supposed to focus on doing business. But the reality is that domestically, America messed up. It enjoys pointing fingers to other people, helpless to neither side. From Peter Parker's experience in China, we know that he made up his mind to spread gospel to save people's souls, and he was chosen a missionary to China. Yet he was a doctor. He did save lives and cured the injured. Yet the situation in China made him a diplomat and for more American interests in China. Besides, he was actually tough to China, and he had his saying, bend or break. If China didn't give up, he preferred to use force. Later in the following Sino-US engagement, another American also faced such change in roles. He was born in a missionary family in Hangzhou, devoted to education in China for decades. Took position president of Yanjing University. He was even put into Japanese jail due to protection to Chinese students. Yet since 1946, when he worked as U.S. ambassador to China, he would surely be the victim and scapegoat for future U.S. failure in foreign policy to China. He was John Layden Stewart, for whom we will have more instructions later. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.